Imagine this. You have finally bought your dream apartment in Nairobi. You have a beautiful lease, a file full of documents, and a receipt that drained your savings. Then, a few years later, you discover something strange. The law quietly changed, and the papers you relied on might not give you the protection you think you have. This is the story of Kenya's Sectional Properties Act and why it matters for anyone who owns or plans to own an apartment. In Kenya, the Constitution has a very broad idea of land. It doesn't just mean soil and fences, it even includes the airspace above the surface, which is why we can legally stack homes on top of each other in high-rise buildings. For a long time, owning an apartment usually meant holding a long-term sublease over a unit in a larger property. The big main title, the mother title, stayed with the developer or landlord. In 2020, Kenya quietly overhauled that system. The old Sectional Properties Act of 1987 was repealed and replaced with the Sectional Properties Act of 2020. The goal was simple: to clean up the confusion around apartment ownership and move away from complicated subleases toward clear, modern sectional titles for individual units. So what exactly is a sectional unit? Think of it as your space in a building, defined very precisely by floors, walls, and ceilings, plus your proportionate share of the common areas like lifts, staircases, parking, and corridors. Instead of holding a long sublease, you now get a certificate of title if the property is freehold, or a certificate of lease if it's leasehold, specifically for your unit. You don't own the whole building, but you own your unit and a legal share of everything that makes the building functional. The 2020 Act brought several important changes. First, it now applies to leasehold properties with at least 21 years left on the lease. Under the old law, the threshold was 45 years, meaning more developments can now qualify for sectional titles. Second, under the old system, owners relied on leases or subleases as proof of ownership. Under the new Act, owners get certificates of title or lease, a major shift toward real, individual ownership of apartment units. Third, the obligation to pay land rates and land rent now sits with each unit owner, not just the management company. Fourth, the management corporation, the body that runs the building, is now governed by the Sectional Properties Act instead of the Companies Act. All of these changes push toward one reality: treating apartment units as real, independently owned property. But here's where things get tricky. Before 2020, developers used long-term subleases to mimic ownership of apartments. When the new law came in, lawmakers understood that thousands of these leases were already circulating. So the Act required that all long-term subleases meant to confer ownership and registered before the new law must be reviewed and brought into line with the Land Registration Act. A key part of that process is geo-referencing, meaning the property must be precisely mapped using survey coordinates and approved by the National Survey Authority. If you're going to treat each unit like land, you must be able to point to its exact location in space. To make the transition smoother, the law gave a 2-year grace period from the time the Act commenced, ending around December 2022, for everyone to convert older leases into sectional titles. Of course, not every development was ready in time. Many sat in an awkward in-between phase. Some units registered under the old rules, others still pending. On 2nd August 2023, the Ministry of Lands issued a memo with transitional measures. It gave instructions for dealing with partially registered developments and fully registered developments that still weren't geo-referenced. For partially registered developments, the ministry allowed registration of new long-term leases if the proprietor of the mother title gives a written undertaking to complete geo-referencing within 6 months, and if a licensed surveyor supports this in writing. For fully registered developments, the memo allows new transactions but requires the survey department to calculate geo-referencing costs. A lien, essentially a legal claim, is then registered over each unit to secure payment of those costs. The lien must be cleared before certain future dealings. In everyday language, you can still transact, but the system is slowly forcing everyone into the new sectional title structure. So what should an ordinary buyer do? First, ask what regime you're in. Is the apartment under a long-term sublease, or has it been converted into a sectional title under the 2020 Act? Second, ask about geo-referencing. Has the building been surveyed and mapped, and is there a registered sectional plan? Third, ask about liens and memos. In older developments, find out if any liens were registered to secure geo-referencing costs and whether those amounts have been cleared. Fourth, check the management corporation. Is it properly constituted under the new law, or are you still dealing with a company formed under the old regime? You don't need to become a land lawyer, but you do need to know which questions to ask, and you need to work with professionals who understand this new landscape. The Sectional Properties Act of 2020 is part of a bigger story: how Kenya is trying to make property ownership more transparent, more precise, and more secure. The paperwork might feel heavy today, but in the long run, it could be the difference between a safe investment and a very expensive misunderstanding. If you found this breakdown helpful, subscribe for more deep dives into the laws that quietly shape everyday life in Kenya.
City lights flicker, shadows on the street. Hearts beating quietly where strangers meet. Stories of sorrow written in our veins. We rise through the struggle, breaking through the chains. Every tear we've fallen, every voice unheard. We lift our dreams together, speak without a word. We'll paint the sky with colors of tomorrow. Heal the wounds carved deep in yesterday. Stand tall amid the sorrow, hope will light our way. Under one sun we'll follow a brighter day. From dusty corners voices start to rise. Whispered dreams now echo through the night. Hands joined across the borders of our pain. We build a world where love will break the chain. Together we can stand, reach out for better land. Every spark of change ignites the flame. We'll write a new tomorrow in our names. We'll paint the sky with colors of tomorrow. Heal the ones carved deep in yesterday.